be a reason for everything that happens. And if you could be clear about the effect that you want, how many people here would like to double their income? Yeah. Okay, wonderful. So that's the effect that we want. If you can be clear about that effect, then you can trace it back and find out how other people earn twice as much as you and do the same things that they do, and you'll soon get the same result. This is one of the greatest success principles ever discovered, is that if you do what other successful people do over and over, you soon get the same results. I can tell you, I jump ahead some years, and I was called up after I decided to be in speaking. I was called up by a businessman who had a national distribution organization. He had about 800 people who sold his product, and every one of them was independent. And he called me up and he said, all these people want to be successful and earn a lot of money. And I said, yes, right? He said, so I would like you to do a seminar for us on how to become a self-made millionaire. And I said, sure, absolutely. When you're a beginning speaker, as Arif will tell you, you'll speak on any subject that anybody asks you to speak on. And so I said, sure, I'll do that. And I had about 2 months. And then I put down the phone and I realized that all my life, I was now in my 30s, all my life I wanted to be a self-made millionaire. I fantasized about it when I was a teenager. All my friends were poor. I lived on the street in many cases. I slept on the floor. I didn't eat very much. And I always wanted to be, but I never had done any research on this subject. So I had to really hurry to do some research, and I started to read all the research, the books, the investigations, the interviews with wealthy people, and I found that there were wonderful studies that people had spent millions of dollars doing to identify the qualities and characteristics of self-made millionaires. And then I got up and I gave a speech, and the speech was called The 21 Success Secrets of Self-Made Millionaires. And I gave it to this group. It was a 1-hour talk, and it got a standing ovation. They were all happy about it. And then I got people calling me and saying, I really like that talk. Could you come and give it to our organization? And I said, sure. So I gave it again. The first talk that you give is always the hardest because it requires so much research. The second time you give it, it's much easier. Soon you can give it almost by memory. And I started to give this talk, first as a 60-minute talk, then as a 90-minute talk, and then people said, well, we'd like you to make it a half-day talk. So I gave it as a half-day talk, and then a full-day talk. And I began traveling and giving this talk to every kind of group all over the world. Well, here's the most amazing thing, is the more I gave this talk, the more money I earned. Well, one of the great rules, going back to the law of cause and effect, is that thoughts are causes and conditions are effects. Thoughts are causes. Your thoughts are the causes that create the conditions of your life. So if you change your thinking, you change your life. If you change your thoughts, which is driving your life, you change what happens to you. And when I first learned this, I couldn't believe it, and I found there were thousands of books and philosophies going back 4,000 years on this subject. You know, they talk about the law of attraction. The law of attraction is very poorly explained, but basically what it says is that if you emotionalize a thought of any kind, you set up a force field of energy that turns your mind into a magnet. And the magnet starts to attract into your life those thoughts that you have electrified by imagination. And the interesting thing that they don't tell you is that it works both ways. Is that if you are negative or angry or upset, then you'll attract that sort of thing in your life. If you're positive and confident and you have positive expectations and you believe that you're going to do well, you attract that into your life. And you attract it by law. And this is the most wonderful thing. I'm still, to this day, I'm shocked by it, is that this is not a theory or a hope or a wish or a prayer. It's a law, like gravity. If you drop something, it falls down. It doesn't fall up or sideways or at an angle. It always falls down 100% of the time. And so, going right back to selling, I realized that if I did the same things that salespeople, that other successful salespeople did, I would get the same result. And where was I going to find this information? Well, if a person is successful, like Arif or like many other people, is they write it down because they want to help other people with what they learned. Because they learned it through great price and penalty and hard work and enormous number of mistakes, as the other people up here have said. So I began to read every book I could possibly find, written by salespeople, explaining how they made every kind of mistake and finally succeeded. Then I began to listen to audio programs. Now at this time, the audio cassette had just been invented. And I began to listen to audio cassettes, and when I was selling, cold calling, I would put on a little set of those cheapo earphones and a little strap around my neck like a purse, and I would walk around from call to call, and I would listen to professional salespeople talking about how to sell. And then I went to my first sales seminar. Oh my first sales seminar, I still remember the man who taught this seminar was a man named Wally Simpson. And that was so many years ago. And he said, ladies and gentlemen, he said, this is how we sell in this industry. This man was a multi-millionaire. He started off cold calling, knocking on the door, and over time became so skilled that he made so much money that one of the biggest companies in New York sent him around the world to train salespeople to sell more and more. So I kept learning these new things. Now here's something that I did that I found in retrospect changed my life and will change yours. And what I did was, when I learned something new, I ran out and I tried it out immediately. I didn't hesitate. I was hungry. And this is one of the most important things about success in life, is you've got to be hungry. You have to want the success. You have to be ambitious. And I found that 95% or more of people hear the ideas and they say, boy, that sure sounds like a good idea. What's for lunch? And that's the last thing that happened. So now I've studied an average of about 3 hours a day for almost 50 years now, probably more than 50 years, and taken notes and applied what I learned. And what I found is that there's a window that opens when you hear a new idea. This window of opportunity opens in your mind, and this window starts to close very quickly. And so when the window opens in your mind, you say, that's a good idea. You must dive through the window quickly before it closes. Because after that, all your enthusiasm will be gone, all your emotion, nothing will happen. So when I went to my first seminar that I was telling you about, at the breaks, we'd have 30-minute breaks. At the breaks, I would run out of the convention center, which was downtown, and I would go to nearby office buildings, and I'd go to the top floor, and I'd call on every office in the building on the way down, not on the way up, down. Gravity is easier to run out. And I would wait, done, until it was about 3 minutes before the seminar, and I'd run back to the convention center and take my place. I always sat up front, by the way. That's another thing. If you go to a seminar, unless they charge you for it, sit up front. Why? Because the closer you are to the front, the more you absorb of what the person is saying. Some people sit in the back. I did a seminar yesterday for about 500 or 600 people in Novosibirsk, and I was amazed to see people sitting way in the back playing with their iPhone all day. I'm sharing with them priceless ideas that have made people rich, and these people are not rich. These people need a smack up by them. And instead of taking notes and listening, they're just killing time. They're playing with their phones, they're reading something, and so on. So don't do what losers do. If you do what losers do, by the law of cause and effect, which is the granddaddy law, I call it the umbrella law of the universe. It covers all of the laws. Every law of mathematics and physics and money and finance and economics all fits under the law. Is don't do what losers do, because if you do what losers do, because of this great law, which is unavoidable, you will simply get the results that losers get. So I would learn something new and get up in the morning, and I would read intensely and take notes, and then that day I would try out what I learned. I would move faster. Someone told me that the key to sales success is to get more rejections. And so what I would do is I would run from door to door so I could be rejected more often. And so I could increase the frequency, because I learned later, it was years later, in my 30s, I actually went back to a university. I passed the entry exams, and I took an MBA degree. And in the MBA degree, they teach you a course called probability theory. Has anybody here ever taken probability theory? Well, it's a course that you hate, don't you? It's an awful course because it's all mathematics, it's very complex, but you never forget the course because the probability theory was developed by a Swiss monk named Mendelssohn, who lived in Switzerland. And what he found was that there is a probability that everything can happen, and that these probabilities can be calculated. And in probability theory, which I had to spend 2 semesters because I failed the first semester, in probability theory they show you how to calculate probabilities. And what I learned was that you can increase the probabilities that you can achieve anything. I'll give you a very simple example. A person wants to get a good seat at a movie, okay? How do you increase the probability really high that you're going to get a good seat at the movie? Go early. Wow, that's a deep thought. Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is, you want to become a millionaire. How do you become a millionaire? Step number 1 is to find out how other people started with nothing and became millionaires. And then don't try to reinvent the wheel. Don't try to do things that are brand new and different. What you do is you do what other successful people have done and do it over and over until you start to get the results that they do, like an engine. Run, run, run. And so I started to read the books and listen to the audio programs and go to the seminars, and I would apply everything I learned immediately, and I started to get results more and more. Here's something else I found, is the first 5 or 6 times, maybe 10 times that you try something new, it doesn't work. Now what is it that most people do? Is most people will not try it once. 50% of people will not try even once when they hear a new idea. Maybe a couple will try it twice, but almost everybody gives up. So I resolved I would try it 5 or 6 or 10 times before I passed judgment on it. And only after I had seen if it worked would I pass judgment. Sort of like cooking with a recipe in the kitchen. Is you taste the recipe in a friend's house or in a restaurant, and you say, well, that's a beautiful dish. I'd love to eat that dish at home. I'd love to be able to make it at home. And you make it at home, and everyone's done this, and somehow it doesn't taste quite the way you remember it. So what do most people do? They give up. And they go back to what they were doing before, which wasn't working either. But I decided that I would try and try and try. And so they say the first part of triumph is to try it and try it again and try it again. There's a whole new school of thought that I teach to my friends and clients in my seminars, and it's called the increasing your return on failure. Is what are all the things that you can do to dramatically increase the amount that you will learn and benefit from a failure in life. You see, most people make a mistake and they throw it over their shoulder and they go on and they forget about it. But what if you took every single mistake that you made and you sat down and you dissected it like an animal in a laboratory, and you dissected it and then you learned, extracted like a juicer. You extracted every lesson that you could learn. So you benefited from every mistake. You'll find that the most successful, the wealthiest people, happiest people are people who've made the biggest mistakes. I remember having this argument with someone years ago, and he was saying, you know, successful people are just lucky. Successful people are just lucky. They just took a chance and they were lucky. And I explained to him, I said, no, successful people fail far more than unsuccessful people. Successful people fail over and over again until they finally succeed. Experimenters, people developing new products and services and so on, going into new markets, learning how to sell. They experiment over and over before they succeed. So what I found, and this is what changed my life, I found that all skills are learnable. There's a series of skills that you need to be successful in sales or business or becoming wealthy. Becoming wealthy, by the way, is simply a learnable skill. And if you learn the learnable skill, you can do it over and over again. For example, if you want to be successful in real estate, I see some real estate professionals here. If you want to be successful in real estate, you can learn how to buy a piece of real estate, fix it up, rent it out, and sell it off, or refinance it and make positive cash flow. Then you can take that money and then you can reinvest it and take the same money and keep reinvesting it. Many years ago, there was a young guy whose parents worked for the government, and he delivered newspapers in the morning. And he delivered them at, it was about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. He'd get up and he'd pitch black, cold, go out and deliver papers, and he earned 1 penny per paper. 1 penny. earned 1 penny per paper, and he saved those pennies. He delivered 200,000 papers in more than 2 years of delivering while he was going to school, and he saved up $2,000. And he took that $2,000 when he got out of school, he invested it the first time. His name was Warren Buffett. Today he's the third richest man in the world. And what he would do is he would buy stocks and bonds and trade with them. And he seemed to have an astute way of investing. Interestingly enough, he went off to university, talk about coincidence, went off to Columbia, and at Columbia, the course that he wanted to take was on history, because he wanted to be a history teacher. And it was filled up, so he couldn't get in. So they said, what's available? Well, there's this very boring course on finance. It's being taught by a man named Benjamin Graham. And there's a couple of seats left in that. And if you don't take those seats, somebody else will take them, and you'll have an under course load or something like that. So he took the course, and he learned with the Benjamin Graham's value investing, the most powerful single method of investing. And when he came out of college, he started to invest, and he was so successful at investing his own little $2,000 from delivering papers that his friend said, can you invest for me as well? So he started to buy and sell stocks. And then one day he realized it'd be better to buy a whole damn company and then take the profits from that company that are distributed every year and reinvest those profits in buying another company. And so he bought a little company that was bankrupt, or almost bankrupt, called Berkshire Hathaway. And he began to manage the company so that it threw off profits. He took the profits and he bought more companies. Today, his companies are worth $350 billion. It's the fourth biggest company in the United States. Last year, he earned $25 billion in profit. Now, I don't care if the pound is going up or down right now. 25 billion is still pretty darn good for 1 year. And all he did was follow the law of cause and effect. He just did what other successful investors do, what he learned from the textbook, what he learned from the professors and everything else. And everybody who follows him. I have a friend, he's a Mexican from Mexico City, and very nice guy. His name is Jorge Aria. And he never invested before in his life. And he decided that it looked like a lot of people were making money in investing, and who was making the most was Warren Buffett. Well, every single stock that Warren Buffett buys or sells is published. So he decided that whatever Warren did, he would do. And so for the next few years, and it's all published, the next few years, if Warren bought a stock, he'd buy the stock. If Warren sold the stock, he'd sell the stock. He made something like 16 times his starting investment. He never made so much money in his life. He made millions of dollars. Now, he had a little bit to start, which is helpful. It's always helpful. But he said it was quite amazing. He just did what Warren did. And there's people all over the world now who are called Buffett billionaires. Because after a few years, people realize this guy's got something going. I'm going to follow him and invest in whatever he invests in. And they became billionaires. There's people who 5, 6, 7. I read some of their stories. Buffett billionaires all over the world. And all they did was follow Warren. Warren had a system, and they just followed the system. What Warren invested in, they did. Now, my point is this, is I've gotten into many different businesses and industries. I developed more than $300 billion worth of real estate, not necessarily my money. I have built hundreds of millions of dollars worth of apartment buildings, shopping centers, developments, real estate developments, and so on. And what I did is first of all, I bought one little apartment, and I invested in that, and I built it up, and I rented it, and I made enough from the rent to pay for the apartment plus a profit. Then I turned it and reinvested that, because why? Because that's what other successful people were doing. And somebody said, well, how could you be so successful in real estate? I said, I read the books. It's in the books. So I wanted to build a shopping center. I don't know anything about shopping centers, so I went down to the library. At that time, I couldn't buy a book. I checked it out, and it said what to do when you have no money and you have a piece of property you can develop. So I went to that chapter. It shows you how to invest with no money. And so I invested with no money. And they said, how can you do that? I just read the book. I just used the methods that everybody else was using. Now here's a great tragedy. Probably 80% of Americans do not read another book after they leave school. Is we are surrounded by more of the best information on how to be successful in every area today than ever before in human history. And it's going to get more and better in the future. Most people don't read. They watch television. I often say, your television can make you rich or make you poor. Make you rich if you turn it on, make you poor. Make you rich if you turn it off, make it poor if you turn it on. So this is what I started doing in selling. Then they made me a sales manager. I used to say a sales mangler. So I became a sales mangler, and I went down and I got the books. And I read, how do you recruit people? How do you hire people? How do you train people? How do you supervise people? How do you manage people? How do you motivate people? Now my courses on managing salespeople are some of the most popular in the world in 10, 20, 30 languages. And where did I get the information? Well, I read the book. And then I went and practiced it in my own business and figured out which works and what doesn't work. And then people said, geez, you're pretty smart about that. How would you like to manage our organization and a bigger organization and train all of our people? And so I created audio programs and I wrote books on the subject. And it's no miracle. I was so amazed. Here's a poor boy from nowhere, no education, sleeping on the ground, working on a farm when he's 23 years old, and he's making so much money, more than my father ever made in his life. So what I'm going to share with you in the time that we spend together tomorrow, I'm going to share with you a series which you call Treasures, Brian's Treasures, or Tracy's Treasures. I'm going to share with you a series of little ideas that have been used by hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people to go from rags to riches. And my promise to you is really clear. If you do what other people who have become successful do, you'll get the same results. And sometimes far faster than you could imagine. Sometimes far faster than you could imagine. I had so many people come to me at my seminars, including in Novosibirsk, in the middle of Siberia, and yesterday and the day before. They say, you changed my life, you made me rich. You changed my life, you made me rich. You changed my life, you made me rich. And their eyes shine, and they're happy, and they beam, and they drive to the seminar, my seminar, in their big Mercedes Benzes, and they take their kids to Europe for vacations, and they got beautiful homes and so on. And they say, you made me rich. And I said, what was it? They said, well, you just showed me what other successful people do. And I went out and I did the same thing, got the same results. Wow, that's pretty deep, huh? And it goes all the way back to our friend Aristotle, law of cause and effect. Do what successful people do, get the same results. And if you do, you do, and if you don't, you don't. And it's black and white. And so the second big problem that people have, and I may repeat this tomorrow, by the way, is most people are lazy. How lazy are they? They're a little lazy, a lot lazy, and bone lazy. Because most people, when they go to work, all they think about is avoiding work. They come in at the last minute, they kill time, they talk to their friends, they play with their computer, they go out for lunch and coffee breaks, they quit early, they do everything possible not to work. But the few people are hard workers. What do we know about wealthy people? 85 to 95% of wealthy people say that the reason they're wealthy is because they work harder than anybody else. That's all. No special secret. They start a little earlier, they work a little harder, they stay a little later. Now, if you start early and work harder and stay later, you get far more experience. If you get far more experience, you get better and better at what you do. If you get better and better at what you do, you get better results. You get better results, then you earn more money faster. And you get onto an upward spiral in life. And so I'm always so happy with my children. They love to work. If you don't love to work, then there's not a chance. And forget all these get rich quick and cut the corners and the little tricks and secrets that somebody's going to tell you where you can get a lot of money without working or anything else. That's not true. That's nonsense. It's nonsense. It's hard to make money. In Japan, I was in Japan earlier this year. In Japan, they have a little saying. It says that making money is like digging the sand with a pin. They said losing money is like pouring water on the sand. And that's what it is. Earning money is really, really hard. And it takes a long time. It takes 5 to 7 years before, almost like an airplane, before you hit takeoff mode. And when you develop your skills to the point where you start to make more and more money. And most people just quit. Try something else, quit. Try something else, quit. try something else. I've done 2 programs recently, and I've blended them now, and they're the success secrets of self-made millionaires and billionaires. And I've produced them as audio programs and as book programs, and I've also taught them as seminars. And basically what we did is we've just taken all the interviews of all these wealthy people and combined them together and taught people. And people say, well, this is so simple. Yes, it is. Do you know that rich people get up before 6 a.m.? Poor people don't. Black and white. If you stay in bed to the last possible minute, well, then you might as well just stay in bed. Rich people read 1 hour to 2 hours every day to become better in their field. Rich people work all the time they work. Warren Buffett comes to work and he spends 80% of every day studying, learning, practicing, increasing his skills. Average people go to work and they just kill time all day long. So you don't even have to be original. Just find out what wealthy people are doing. Do the same thing. Every single doctor or lawyer or architect or engineer or master chef or top musician, all they do is they allow themselves or aggressively seek out the teachings of other people who are already good in those fields until they've mastered the same skill. So the wonderful thing about this room and this seminar that we're at is that you can decide that, yes, I think I'm going to become wealthy. You know, I've thought about it and I say I can be rich and I can be poor. I think I'll choose rich. And you know why most people are poor? It's because they never chose rich. And people say, well, no, this can't be that simple. Yes, it is. Is if you never decide to be wealthy, then you will never be wealthy. But if you do decide to be wealthy, it's not easy and it's not fast, but it's damn near guaranteed.